I got the mic on, and hopefully we are streaming live from Chase Center. And I don't know if we're going to be back in Chase Center because the Warriors dumped this critical Game 4 here tonight at Chase Center. It was not it was a lot further away than the final will indicate. 117-110, but it even was not even close to that close. The Warriors got blown out in the third quarter when they lost 39-17. They turned the ball over 6 times in the third quarter alone. I believe they finished the night with, they had 18 assists and 16 turnovers. 16 turnovers cooked the Warriors, and again, it was a night where no one who played in the backcourt could do very much of anything. And that was a tough one for the Golden State Warriors. It actually started off pretty damn well. I mean, it really did. I got a lot of notes here. And I'll tell you, it started off with spicy Draymond. You had Pajemski hitting a couple shots early, and you're thinking, all right, maybe this is an indicator of what's about to happen here tonight. But no, it didn't happen. Draymond knocked down his second 3 of the game in the third quarter, and did he hit another one after that? No, unfortunately he didn't. He goes 2 of 6 for downtown. Gary Payton hit an opening corner 3 that was a good look, and then he would airball his very next look from the exact same corner, wide open, but it just didn't matter. Gary Payton had a rough night. He's had a rough series. But it was 28-27 Warriors, and this is with Buddy Hield and Jimmy combining for only 2 points in the first quarter. And you thought, all right, well, maybe the complimentary group has shown up and is ready to contribute tonight. Jimmy was 0 for 1 and Buddy was 0 for 2 in the first quarter. So you thought maybe, just maybe, the other guys are going to step up here, and then in the second half, you're going to get a Hield effort, a Jimmy Butler effort. Look, Jimmy was not nearly as aggressive as he needed to be in the first half of this game. You get to the second quarter, and again, Pods with just an awful mid-range kind of heat check, and he's got 15 seconds left in the shot clock. He's just not shooting the ball well at all. He has not had a good playoffs. No one, but for, ironically enough, Jonathan Kuminga, a little bit of Jimmy Butler, a little bit of Draymond Green, has played particularly well for the Golden State Warriors here over the course of 4 games now. There was a sequence where Hield connected on a 3-pointer. Jimmy got a putback layup. Kuminga with a drive to the basket, and it looked like the Warriors were getting a little momentum underneath them and going to do something here to put a little separation between them and the Timberwolves on the scoreboard before you got to halftime. But then I just, couldn't help but notice that Julius Randle is just killing the Golden State Warriors. Julius Randle has had himself a hell of a game, hell of a series. At one point, 7 of 10 in this game. He was 3 for 3 for downtown, 19 points, 5 rebounds, and that's with 7:26 to play in the second quarter. So Julius Randle came out like on a mission to do damage, and he has been doing damage to the Warriors really in this entire series. Let's see. It felt like there was a moment where the crowd really got into the game too, and that's when Buddy Hield was fouled. It looked like there might have been a flagrant on that one, but they ruled that grabbing Buddy and pulling him down from the back of the jersey in this game was not an uncommon, common foul. It was not necessarily an uncommon situation. It should have been a flagrant, I thought. But it fired up the crowd. And I think the Warriors rode that momentum into, at the end of the first half, they were up by 2. It was 60-58. And it was, Ant hitting a 3 at the buzzer. It looked like the Warriors were going to be up 5, but Anthony Edwards hits a 3 and then really starts dominating in the third quarter. Edwards had 14 points at halftime. And by the end of the third quarter, this guy is basically doubled his point total. He's got 30, I think, by the end of the third quarter. Edwards hit a step-back 3-pointer to put the Timberwolves up 12. It was their biggest lead of the game. Then DiVincenzo hits a 3, and the next thing you know, it just got away from the Warriors. And there was a 25-6 Minnesota run in that third quarter. Minnesota pushed the lead out to 20. I believe that was their biggest lead of the game. Did they have a bigger lead than 20 in this? 21. So there you go. They led by 21 at one point. But once it was there, the game was pretty much over. Through 3, you had Minnesota. By the way, 650, thank you very much. You need Steph ASAP, he writes. Thank you for the super. Very generous. Appreciate that, 650. That'll cover the Uber home. Thank you. Look, I don't know what Steph Curry is supposed to do with this. There's just not enough supporting cast showing up, even if Steph could come back. And look, hamstring isn't one of those like, hey, man, strap it on and give it a go. I don't know if we're going to see Steph on Wednesday night. And even if you do, the chances of winning 2 out of 3 with him at this point in this series, these are, overwhelming odds. And the amount of him having to play over the course of the next 3 games to salvage this series, I mean, I just don't know if that's what you want Steph Curry doing at this age in his career. I mean, I understand. You want to go out on your shield. You want to have your best effort. But asking Steph Curry to come and save everyone's bacon when, look, the Warriors had to get back in this series with a Game 3 win or a Game 4 win. They dumped both of these games at home. They've lost 3 in a row now. It has been an awful lot of Anthony Edwards in second halves that there's no slowing down. It's been an awful lot of Julius Randle, no slowing down. Naz Reid didn't even have a good game tonight. Naz Reid, if he had had any sort of a game tonight like he's had earlier on in this series, this would have been a 35-point loss for the Warriors, to be honest with you. Minnesota, again, pushed the lead to 20, and at one point through 3 quarters, the Timberwolves are shooting 53% from the field, 52% from downtown, and 92% from the free throw line. Again, the holy grail of shooting splits is, 50, 40, 90, and you got the Timberwolves going 53, 52, 92 as a team through 3 quarters in a game you got to win. And it was pretty much all over there. Again, the Warriors lost the third, 39-17, and then the fourth quarter is, just dragging along, meaningless review after another bad turnover, after, it took way too long on reality's clock than it did the 12 minutes on the actual game clock. Warriors had a tiny burst to start the fourth quarter on a 6-2 run, but, with 5 to play in the fourth quarter, they're emptying their bench. And that was really some of the most compelling basketball of the game. It looked like the bench came in with an awful lot of, vim, vigor. I don't know. What can I tell you? When it mattered, the Warriors didn't give the requisite effort beyond the first quarter energy. They died in the third quarter, and Game 5 is on Wednesday, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's where this series dies and it turns into a Minnesota gentleman's sweep. Look, the minute Steph Curry went down, this went straight to trouble. And I know that we've been, talking about hopes and how could it happen and just tread water until maybe Steph gets back and you try to win 2 out of 3. I think that ship is officially, left town here. And this is only a matter of time. We got a ticking time bomb here that's about to go off in the Warriors' face. Look, it was a 7-point loss tonight. It wasn't even that close, though. At one point, Josh Dubois tweeted out that the Warriors went from up 2 at halftime to down 18, which would have been the most lopsided playoff loss since a 1958 game after leading at halftime. So the Warriors avoided the historically bad loss, but they're in a historically usually insurmountable situation here now. And again, without Curry leading the way, what do you think is going to happen here? What do you think is really going to happen? JL Morales, it's a wrap. The season is over. Yeah, I mean, not technically, but I think anyone who just understands basketball and the life cycles of teams understands that this team has run out of wick. I mean, it really has. I thought that this game was going to be a race to 100, and you had Minnesota nearly getting there at the end of the third quarter, where the Warriors getting to 100 is just, it ain't easy. By the way, some lights are coming up in here right now, so hopefully I'm a little bit better lit. Again, thanks for being here. Hit like and subscribe if you would, please. It's good to be out at Chase Center for what I fear might be our last time here. And look, you really want to boil it down. Like, what's responsible? Who's responsible? I actually thought Steve Kerr has coached one of his best series in this playoffs. I really do. That he has pulled every lever, and if any one of the supporting cast hit some buckets, the Warriors, it's not inconceivable for them to even have a series lead right now, but that's how bad Brandon Podziemski has unfortunately been for the Warriors. What did he finish tonight? 3 of 14. Brandon Podziemski shooting 25% or worse in 5 games in a row now. Moses Moody was a coach DNP in every minute in this game that mattered. Moses Moody did hit a 3 late, so he's hit 1 3 in the month of May, but I don't know if he's going to get a chance to do much more. And if you would have told me, what has to happen when Steph Curry goes out, I would have said, well, Brandon Podziemski or Moses Moody has to step into this room and announce his presence. And both of these guys have just fallen totally flat and on their faces, especially Moses Moody. Moses Moody went from in the rotation to out of the rotation in real time in this series. And no one is like angry at Steve Kerr trying to accuse him of doing something, that is minute malpractice because he's been that bad. To ask a guy who's really not asked to carry the load throughout a regular season to carry a big postseason load is a huge ask. But here in year 4, Moses Moody played like it was game number 4 for him in his career. Again, Brandon Podziemski's been disappointing. Unfortunately, Buddy Hield just couldn't stack moments on top of moments. He's had a few moments here in the postseason. I'll give that to Buddy, but he just can't stack enough of those moments. And look, playoff basketball is hard. You're not just seeing it in this series. You're seeing it around the NBA. These games slow down. They come to a grinding level of defense. And it's hard for teams that are leaning on young guys to have success under those situations. Moody, Podziemski, to an extent, much lesser extent, Quentin Post. Again, Quentin Post got to start in this game and then doesn't even play to garbage time in another game. I really, Steve Kerr's rotations leave a lot to be desired, but to really nitpick about rotations when Steph is not in the room, I don't even know how much of a well thought out exercise that would even be. The Warriors, the minute Steph Curry pulled his hamstring, were falling off the balance beam. And tonight they basically totally slipped, and I wouldn't be surprised if they hit the floor and watch their season come to an end in Game 5. Now, maybe, just maybe, they can muster up the ability to get it back here for 6. Again, Game 5 is Wednesday. Game 6, I believe, would be Sunday. And that just really hurts the Warriors' chances, too, because there was a little extra healing time built in for Steph had the Warriors just managed a way to tread water here through 4 games. But they're in a big hole now. Big hole. Philip Palouse says, Kerr on rotations. Let's just throw shit against the wall and see what sticks. Look, he pulled the levers he had to pull. Unfortunately, none of them equaled guy goes into basketball game and knocks down shots. It's tough. It's tough. Warriors just had a rough game. Their leading scorer this evening, again, Jonathan Kuminga. Now, Jonathan Kuminga's production here in these few games without Steph Curry leaves a lot of people asking, well, where the hell was he when Steph Curry was in the building, right? Kuminga, well, let me start by saying this. The Warriors and everything they do is built around what is best for Steph Curry. Jonathan Kuminga being on the court with Steph Curry is not best for the offense. But again, there's moments when Curry's not on the court, and that's when Jonathan Kuminga should be out there and given permission to go a little one-on-one, try to get downhill, try to get to the free throw line. Because, look, this guy, for all of his imperfections and his lack of attention to some defensive detail, he scores the basketball. And the Warriors were desperate to have anybody score the basketball here for the course of 3 games now. And Kuminga has done more to make this team go than just about anybody else. Again, Jimmy Butler took 9 shots tonight. Like, playoff Jimmy, that ain't it, man. And I understand you want to play the right way. You want to make the right choice. Well, his dedication to playing the right way is a chief reason why this was a loss tonight. It would have been better to play the wrong way in a victory than the right way in a loss. And you got to eventually look around and say, who's coming with me tonight? Who's going over the wall with me? And then you realize you're the only guy over the wall. So you got to do something when you're the only one over the wall and there's nobody else helping you out. And Jimmy Butler will not shoot an uncontested layup. It's one of the weirdest things. So like you sit and you watch it at home and it sometimes looks a little weird. You're here in person. By the way, you know who I sat next to tonight? Who is back here? You used to know him from Warriors Postgame podcast on CSN Bay Area. Grant Liffman, who actually left the Bay Area media to go join the Atlanta Hawks front office there. Grant Liffman was back in the Bay for these last couple of games. He and I sat next to each other tonight. A lot of talk. He's going to come on the channel soon. But this was just one of those games where you're watching Jimmy Butler. Again, look. We all get it that the 3 is worth more than 2. But 2 is worth more than 0. And it seems like the Warriors forget that. It seems like Jimmy Butler forgets that. As he's watching nobody else come along with him over the wall, he's still kicking it out to guys like they're knocking down shots. They're not. And if you're embarrassed about smoking a layup, you shouldn't be, because smoking a layup is... They smoked more layups than they did joints at Grateful Dead shows here in San Francisco in this series. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous to watch this team over and over again at the rim just do nothing. Go up, if I can quote Kevin Harlan, up high, down hard, like flush that shit. And it did not happen. In a year where a lot of pieces didn't feel like they fit very well together, watching Jonathan Kuminga emerge with some good basketball under his belt is, I'm happy to see it. I'm very unhappy with the fact that Brandon Pajemski is nothing more than a guy who can pick up a charge. I mean, that's you need to be more than just, Charlie Hustle, especially with Steph out. Again, this backcourt without Steph Curry did nothing. And Buddy Hield in 35 minutes got the Warriors 13 points. Not enough. But at least he was letting it go, right? Buddy Hield took 11 shots. Jimmy Butler, 9 shots. I'm serious. I'm looking at it. I can't believe it. 9 shots for Jimmy Butler. Why? What are you thinking? Do you think that that's the right way to go about winning this game tonight? I don't get it. How someone can have that big of a basketball IQ, yet not do the calculus on the situation that the team is in. The whole Batman Robin thing a little bit played out. Well, tonight, the bat signal went up, and, I guess Robin could respond to the bat signal, but this one chose kind of not to. And that was pretty damn disappointing. 37 of 85, 43.5% from the Warriors from the field. Again, nearly 50% from the field for the Timberwolves, 47% from 3 when it's all said and done, 88% from the free throw line. And look, it really feels like this is all she wrote. If the Warriors even are lucky enough to somehow salvage Game 5, it feels like they are just not wired the right way to take 3 in a row against anybody. And look, Minnesota was vulnerable. They really, really were. Minnesota opened the door for the Warriors to walk through it. They just didn't do it, and it's been frustrating. It's been frustrating to watch a team that really was able to lean on some of its young players like Moses Moody, like Brandon Pajemski, like Quentin Post, and watch these guys become really reliable contributors in the last 20 or so games of the year after they traded for Jimmy. It looks like, Jimmy was the tide that lifted every boat in the harbor. But unfortunately, the tide has gone out. Jimmy's not quite that boat. He's not shooting enough to be that boat. And it ain't happening. I mean, it just ain't happening. JK says, small ball era has come to an end. We need some modern centers. Look, you need who would be a great Warrior? Naz Reid. That would be like the stretch that they need. But Quentin Post looked like he might be that stretch 5, but he got, he became an untrusted agent here when the basketball became, its most critical. Mr. Hudson said the Golden Gals are finished. Oh, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. The Golden Gals, the Golden Girls, they're still in reruns. But it comes to an end. It comes to an end. There is no forever in sports, and it feels like this is coming to a screeching halt here. And if we're being completely honest with everything that is going on, this team overachieved. They really did. Jimmy Butler pumped enough life into them to get them to appear as if they were ready to be a real postseason force. Again, when their defense really started sharpening its knife, you said, hey, maybe, it's back, baby. They're playing defense. It's strength in numbers. But no player, no team in the NBA is who they need to be without their best player. And without Steph Curry, the Golden State Warriors are, I don't want to say soulless, but they're without their heartbeat and they're without their brain. And that was rough, man. That was rough. Jimmy would go on, Mar saying, Jimmy would go under the basket and then pass out the whole playoffs. Yeah, it's so weird to watch in real time. You see how undefended at times he is. It's not like, he's got, Rudy Gobert is just over him like this. And you wouldn't want to shoot that layup either. No. And by the way, taking it right at Rudy Gobert is a really good way to attack the Minnesota Timberwolves. Rudy Gobert is a net minus usually on the floor defensively. I don't care how many trophies he's got for Defensive Player of the Year. Rudy Gobert kind of sucks. It was desperate at home night in the NBA, and as desperate as the Warriors were, they weren't able to get it done. The New York Knicks did get it done at Madison Square Garden, but even with a Knicks victory, the story clearly coming out of that game is the injury to Jason Tatum, and it looks like he has popped his Achilles. He's going to go for an MRI, and I believe tomorrow we're all going to learn that he popped his Achilles. You can pretty much look at the tea leaves right now, look at the way he reacted to that injury, and say that's an Achilles. Even though we are, not doctors, should not play one here on the interwebs either. But that had all the earmarks of an Achilles injury. He's burying his head in the towel right there, crying his eyes out on the court. Players, usually don't do that. So, sports can be really cruel. Not only does that take away, what's Tatum 26, 27? This is taking away the prime of his career, but it ruins this season for the Celtics. It ruins all of next season for the Celtics, and sports can be cruel, man. Sports can absolutely be cruel. What the fuck is, whatever that is there? It says, Damon, the last 2 losses got to be on Kerr. I disagree. I think that these are 2 of the best coached games Steve Kerr has ever put together. He had a game plan to get the Warriors across the finish line 2 nights in a row. It's his players that didn't make the shots. When you got Gary Payton smoking layups and missing wide open corner threes, and Brandon Pajemski doing nothing, and Moses Moody completely forgetting how to play the sport of basketball for 3 games in a row, how's that on Kerr? You can go back and complain about player development all you want, but I thought the game plan to beat Minnesota without Steph Curry was in place. The Warriors just didn't execute it. Warriors did not execute it. Oh, you're saying pods. It's pods. Yeah, look, it's part of pods. It's part of Healed. It's part of Moody, to a lesser extent, but it's part of Quentin Post. It's part of Gary Payton II. It's Draymond Green finishing with 14 points and 7 rebounds tonight. He came out spicy, but just couldn't maintain that level of energy throughout the game. These guys are getting old in front of our eyes. You can say that Jimmy Butler, he's still got a little bit of an injury that's affecting him. I won't disagree with that. That's probably still in play. But he's healthy enough to be out there. And he's certainly healthy enough to take more than 9 shots. 9 shots for Jimmy Butler. I'm stunned by that. I really am. So anyways, Liftman's flying back to Atlanta. We're going to get him on the channel sometime soon. Talk to a few people in the media here that will be popping on hopefully sometime soon. It feels like there's an awful lot of Warriors post-mortem coming up in our immediate future. I talked to an awful lot of the beat writers who, are around this team enough to know what their odds are and when the writing's on the wall. And a lot of people who cover this team on a daily basis, as I talked to them tonight, hey, what do you think? You got a shot? And it's just like, nah. Again, anyone who really knows basketball and really covers this team and understands what's important to this team knew that the Warriors were in an awful lot of trouble. There's an element of, fandom and hope that I'll never deny anyone, but the reality was knocking on the door of the Golden State Warriors. And the reality is, without Steph Curry, they're hardly a basketball team of consequence. And with Steph Curry, how much more consequence will be attached to the Golden State Warriors going forward will be interesting. One of the things we talked about today on the 11 a.m. show, West Coast time on YouTube. If you like and subscribe and hit notify, you won't miss anything. But, Giannis Antetokounmpo, for the very first time in his career, I guess, is thinking beyond just being a Milwaukee Buck forever and forever. And if you're the Golden State Warriors, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Pajemski, 3 first-round draft picks, package it all for that guy. Package it all for that guy. But it's just a touch too early to be talking about off-season moves. Championship DNA, whatever they got left in them, they're going to need an awful lot of it because they're in a 3-1 hole and they're in an awful lot of trouble. And there it is. And there's really nothing much more to say. There's a whole bunch more notes I guess I could have shared in here with you, but what more do you need? 3-1, Steph will be reevaluated tomorrow, and based on that reevaluation, we'll be able to determine how many more minutes the Warriors have left in their season. As it stands right now, the over-under is 48 minutes. I think the Warriors got 48 minutes left in their season. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Again, it was great talking to you. I think I'm going to go downstairs, jump into a press conference, maybe see what we can glean about if they're, if they think that Steph Curry is going to. Well, we're not going to learn anything tonight. They're not going to tell us tonight. By the way, every single person, I asked here tonight, anything on Steph? What do you think? What are you thinking? No one thinks yeah, game 5, write it down, guaranteed, he'll be there. And you can't do that with a hamstring pull. This is a pulled muscle. It's not something that you can go on and give a full workload until it's properly healed. And, when is the hamstring properly healed? After pulling it? Team doctors have been asking themselves that question since the dawn of sports. That's a difficult injury to predict. All right, you're over it now. You can go back out. And Steph Curry is a level of asset that you don't play recklessly with that guy at all. So I wish we had more fun here for you on a little post-game live stream from Chase Center. Thanks to the Warriors, as always, for letting Damon Bruce Plus be a media member that is still allowed in here. I appreciate Raymond Ritter and his crew who picked up an award today for how good of a job they do handling media here at Golden State, and that's all Raymond Ritter and his crew, so I thank them. I thank you for watching. Again, lots of things that you could be doing right now, spending time with me. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you for coming on by and please do remember that, the Warriors this time of year used to be this, just draft lottery. How many ping pong balls did the Warriors have? Did the Warriors have 48 ping pong balls? Used to be a biggest question is, do the Warriors have 48 minutes left in their season this time of year? So I guess we should be thankful for what we've had and what we got. But when it's over, it hurts. It really, really does. And this feels like it is pretty much over. Be back at it 11 a.m. West Coast time, live streaming on YouTube. Hopefully we'll see you on Tuesday. In the meantime, though, thanks very much for checking this live stream out. Hit like and subscribe if you would, please, on the way out. Support my sponsors, my good friend Ike of Ike Sandwiches. Boy, I should have mentioned him right off the rip. And if there was ever a time to go to the Dubliner and drown your sorrows as a Warriors fan, now is that time. Make good choices, everybody. Make good choices. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to everyone who's behind me right here, who listened to me talk for the last half hour without complaining. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you very much. And there it is from Chase Center. Thanks for tuning in. And please do remember that sports don't build character. They reveal it. And like that, he is gone.